Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a global mix this week.
Yeah, looks like a wild one.
For sure, from international tensions to, well, let's just say a monkey causing a blackout in Sri Lanka.
Oh, wow. Okay, I've got to hear about that one.
You and me both. But first, let's head over to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where things are, well,
Heating up.
you could say that the Kivu conflict is escalating.
Right, right, with those M23 rebels.
Yeah, they've been pushing hard lately, even took over an airport.
And there's that whole thing with Rwanda, right?
Exactly. There are, well, some are saying that Rwanda's backing these M23 rebels.
Probably hoping to get their hands on some of those minerals the DRC's got.
Yeah, all those resources that we use for like our phones and electric cars.
It's a familiar story, unfortunately. Powerful country seize an opportunity.
And it's the people in the DRC who end up caught in the middle.
Yeah, facing violence and displacement and all that.
It really makes you think about how interconnected everything
For
is.
sure.
And speaking of vulnerable spots, did you catch that report on the drone strike on Chernobyl?
Oh, yeah, that was unnerving. Even though the radiation levels stayed stable.
Still, it's like a wake-up call about how fragile these places are.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder, was it deliberate or just a terrible mistake?
We'll have to see how that unfolds. Now, shifting gears to Pakistan.
The Balochistan insurgency, right?
Right, that bomb attack targeting those coal miners is just,
Devastating.
it really underscores the human cost of these conflicts that don't always get enough attention.
Absolutely. Okay, ready for some U.S. politics?
Always a roller coaster, right? This week, it's the Trump administration making headlines again.
What have they done now?
Mass layoffs of federal workers, and I'm talking big agencies here.
Like?
Like the CDC, even the Centers for Disease Control is getting hit.
Wow, they're already facing legal challenges over that one.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that cutting back so much will have serious consequences.
For public health, for safety, you name it.
And to think things even more interesting, President Trump is moving forward with those reciprocal tariffs.
The ones he says are to combat unfair trade practices.
The very same. But a lot of economists are warning that this could kick off a global trade war.
Which nobody really wins.
Exactly. And we all end up paying more for, well, pretty much everything.
Not to mention the disruptions to global supply chains.
Right, right. It's a whole web of interconnected things.
And on top of all that, the Senate just confirmed Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as the new Health and Human Services Secretary.
Oh yeah, that's going to be interesting.
He's known for his views on vaccines.
To say the least, a lot of public health experts are voicing concerns about what this means for, vaccination policies.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
And there's even more. The Trump administration is freezing USA aid funding.
USA aid? Really? That's...
Yeah, the U.S. Agency for International Development. They do a lot of work in developing countries.
This is going to cause some serious problems for organizations and aid programs that depend on them.
It already has. Several states are even suing over it.
This raises some big questions about America's role in international development going forward.
It does. And then there's Elon Musk.
Always got to be something with him.
This time it's the Treasury Department looking into his team who work on Dogecoin.
Ah, the cryptocurrency angle.
Right, they're auditing their access to the federal payment system after some senators raised concerns about potential conflicts of interest.
I guess transparency is important, especially when you're talking about government finances.
For sure. So that's just a taste of what's going on in U.S. politics.
Just a taste. Wow.
We also had Tulsi Gabbard sworn in as the new Director of National Intelligence.
Okay, big change there.
And President Trump went after Mitch McConnell publicly, so there's some tension in the Republican Party.
Sounds like it. And there's that deal with El Salvador about housing migrants in prisons.
Yeah, that one's causing quite a stir, and of course the legal challenges to the Trump administration are still ongoing.
So U.S. politics is as unpredictable as ever.
Always keeps us on our toes, right?
Absolutely.
But let's shift focus for a moment and zoom in on the international political landscape. Things are getting pretty tense between Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah, Zelensky's taking a hard line.
He's demanding security guarantees before he'll even think about peace talks with Putin.
Makes sense. He wants to protect Ukraine's, their safety and their land before he even sits down at the table.
Exactly. It shows just how much distrust there is between the two countries.
A lot of bad blood there.
For sure. Meanwhile, we've got U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance over in Europe right now.
What's he up to?
He's been meeting with European leaders, urging them to take a tougher stance on illegal migration.
So migration's becoming a big issue over there, too.
It seems so. It's interesting how these global issues are all, intertwined.
Yeah, migration, border security, international cooperation. You can't really separate them.
Absolutely. And then there's that Trump-Putin phone call that got everyone buzzing.
Oh, yeah, that one sent the analysts to overdrive.
They're saying it could mean a change in U.S. policy on Ukraine, which could have a domino effect on NATO and the whole conflict.
It's hard to say for sure what it means, but it definitely raises a lot of questions about the future of U.S.-Russia relations.
For sure. They've always had a complicated relationship.
To put it mildly, it's one of those things that can have a huge impact on, global stability.
Absolutely. To wrap up the international news, there were a few other noteworthy events. Hamas postponed the release of those hostages.
Oh, right, the ones they were supposed to let go.
Yeah, they're saying Israel violated the ceasefire agreement.
Tricky situation.
Then you have Belarus releasing 3 detainees, including an American.
Interesting. Maybe a sign of thawing relations.
Could be. And the U.S. and Russia did a prisoner swap, exchanging a money launderer for an American teacher who was imprisoned in Russia.
Classic prisoner swap. It really highlights the complexities of international diplomacy, doesn't it?
It does. Every action has the potential to, set off a chain of events.
Like a game of chess, where every move matters.
Exactly. Okay, let's move on to the global economy, shall we?
Let's do it.
Well, things aren't looking so hot in the U.S. right now. Retail sales took a nosedive in January.
A nosedive, really?
Yeah, it's got people worried about a slowdown in consumer spending.
Could be a sign that people are feeling the pinch from inflation, becoming more cautious about how they spend their money.
I think you're right. It's definitely a key indicator that we'll be keeping an eye on.
For sure. And speaking of inflation, it's still the big elephant in the room.
It is. The Federal Reserve is signaling that they might keep interest rates high to try and get it under control.
But that could backfire and slow down economic growth even more.
Exactly. It's a tough balancing act for them.
They want to tame inflation without causing a recession, which is easier said than done.
You're telling me. So what's the overall outlook for the global economy?
Well, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, is predicting stable growth.
So that's good news, right?
It is, but they're also warning about potential risks, like those trade wars we talked about earlier.
So it's a bit of a mixed bag then.
I'd say so. There are positive factors and negative factors all swirling around, and the ultimate outcome will depend on, well, a whole bunch of things.
Like a giant economic puzzle.
Yeah, with a lot of moving pieces.
But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. The travel and tourism industry is seeing a rebound this year.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, it looks like people are finally feeling confident enough to travel again after all the uncertainty of the past few years.
It's a good sign that consumer confidence is returning.
Right, people are feeling more optimistic, ready to explore the world again.
And that's good for everyone.
Absolutely. Now hold on to your hats because we're about to enter the realm of science and technology, where things are always moving at warp speed.
Buckle up.
This week, physicists announced that they found evidence suggesting there might be not one, but 2 arrows of time.
2 arrows of time. What does that even mean?
It's a mind-bending concept that challenges our understanding of how time works, especially at the subatomic level.
So like 2 separate timelines running concurrently.
Yeah, something like that. It's like realizing that the Earth is round when you've always thought it was flat.
That's a pretty big shift in perspective.
It is, and it could have huge implications for physics and our understanding of the universe.
Makes you wonder what other fundamental things we might be getting wrong.
Right. Now, while we're pondering the mysteries of time, let's bring things back down to Earth. Literally,
To reality.
there's some new research about the Greenland ice sheet that's pretty concerning.
What's going on with that?
Well, scientists are saying that if it reaches a certain tipping point, it could melt completely.
Melt completely. Wow.
And that would have catastrophic consequences for global sea levels.
We're talking about coastal cities being submerged, millions of people displaced.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought.
It's a stark reminder that climate change is a real and present danger.
And that we need to act now to mitigate its effects.
Absolutely. Every little bit helps.
But amidst these kind of scary realities, there have also been some incredible breakthroughs in science and technology.
Give me some good news.
Well, researchers have discovered that birds actually evolved complex brains independently from mammals.
Really? So they figured out how to be smart all on their own?
Pretty much. It challenges our traditional understanding of brain evolution and shows just how diverse life on Earth really is.
Amazing how nature finds different ways to achieve the same goal.
It is. And on the technology front, scientists have developed a fully recyclable solar cell.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, it could be a game changer for renewable energy.
Absolutely. And what else?
Oh, they've also created self-healing electronic skin.
Self-healing, like it can repair itself.
Exactly. Imagine the possibilities for robotics and prosthetics.
It's like something straight out of science fiction.
And get this, they've even figured out how to use AI to accelerate nanoparticle research.
AI is everywhere these days.
It really is, and it's helping us make advances in so many fields.
So despite the challenges, there's a lot to be hopeful about.
Definitely. Okay, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's take a look at some of the more lighthearted things happening in the world.
Sounds good to me.
You might have heard of bed rotting. It's a trend that's been making the rounds on TikTok.
Bed rotting. What in the world is that?
It's basically all about embracing rest and relaxation, spending extended periods of time in bed as a form of self-care.
So like a glorification of laziness.
Well, some might say that, but it also reflects a growing awareness of the importance of mental health.
True, we all need to take care of ourselves.
Exactly. And speaking of cultural trends, have you noticed how AI is starting to influence human creativity?
Oh, yeah. It's becoming more and more common.
It's like this fascinating dance between technology and artistic expression.
Like, AI is becoming a tool for artists to use rather than a replacement for them.
Right, and we're seeing it in all sorts of fields, from music to fashion.
It's blurring the lines between what's human-made and what's machine-made.
And speaking of blurring lines, sci-fi and fantasy themes are having a major moment in fashion.
Oh, I've noticed that. All the space-age designs and mythical
It's
creatures.
like fashion's becoming a portal to other worlds.
Exactly. And lastly, we can't forget that satirical petition that went viral.
And then calling for Denmark to buy California.
The very same. It's obviously a joke, but it does reflect some of the frustrations people have with California politics.
It's a way for people to voice their discontent in well, a humorous way.
Humor can be a powerful tool.
Absolutely. So that's a wrap on part one of this week's deep dive.
Wow, that was a lot to cover.
It was. We've gone from global conflicts to quirky cultural trends and everything in between.
A real whirlwind tour of current events.
But that's what makes it so interesting, right? The world is a complex and ever-changing place.
And we're all trying to make sense of it together.
That's what we're here for, to explore the big questions and the little details that make up our world.
And to hopefully spark some thought-provoking conversations along the way.
So stay tuned for part two, where we'll delve even deeper into some of these topics and explore some new ones.
Can't wait. It's like every week there's something new.
It really is. But hey, let's dive back into those international political waters, shall we?
Lead the way.
All right, so Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, he's making it clear what he wants.
And what's that?
Security guarantees.
Before he even considers peace talks with Russia?
Exactly. He's not budging on that. He wants Ukraine's, safety and territorial integrity ironclad before he even sits down with Putin.
I can't say I blame him, given the situation.
Yeah, it just shows you the level of distrust between those two countries.
A lot of history there.
And while that's unfolding, we've got U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance making the rounds in Europe.
What's he up to over there?
Well, he's been meeting with all sorts of European leaders, urging them to crack down on illegal migration.
So migration is a hot topic over there too, huh?
It seems so, which just goes to show you how these global challenges are, all connected.
Yeah, you can't really address one without considering the others.
Absolutely. And then there was that Trump-Putin phone call.
The one that said everyone's tongue's wagging.
The very same analysts are speculating that it could signal a shift in U.S. policy towards Ukraine.
Which could have major implications for NATO and, well, the whole balance of power in the region.
It's definitely fueled a lot of uncertainty.
The future of U.S.-Russia relations is, shall we say, a bit murky right now.
It's never a dull moment with those two, that's for sure. Okay, rounding out the international scene, we had a few other notable events.
Fill me in.
Hamas decided to postpone the release of those hostages, citing alleged ceasefire violations by Israel.
So more back and forth in that conflict.
Unfortunately, and Belarus went ahead and released 3 detainees, one of them an American citizen.
Interesting. Maybe a sign that things are improving on that front.
It's possible. And we had a U.S.-Russian prisoner swap.
The old switcheroo, always a classic.
Right. They exchanged a convicted money launderer for an American teacher who had been imprisoned in Russia.
It's like a real-life spy movie sometimes.
It really is. It just goes to show you how complex international diplomacy can be.
Every action has a potential to trigger a reaction, and it's all about trying to navigate those, those ripple effects.
Exactly. Okay, let's shift gears now and talk about the global economy. How does that sound?
Sure, bring on the numbers.
Well, the news from the U.S. isn't exactly rosy. Retail sales took a sharp dip in January, which has a lot of people worried.
Worried about what exactly?
A potential slowdown in consumer spending.
I see. Could be a sign that inflation is finally starting to bite, making people more cautious about spending.
It's definitely a trend we need to watch closely.
Agreed. And speaking of inflation, it continues to be a major headache for policymakers.
The Federal Reserve has hinted that they might stick with high interest rates to try and combat it, but that comes with its own risks.
Yeah, too high, and you risk tipping the economy into a recession.
It's a tough balancing act, for sure. So what's the overall outlook for the global economy? Well, the International Monetary Fund, or IMF for short, is predicting stable growth.
Stable growth, that's good, right?
It is, but they're also warning about potential risks, like those trade wars we discussed earlier.
So a bit of a mixed bag then.
Yeah, kind of like walking a tightrope. There are positive factors and negative factors at play, and the ultimate outcome is still uncertain.
Makes you wish we had a crystal ball, huh?
Wouldn't that be nice? But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. The travel and tourism industry is actually making a comeback.
Oh, that's great news. People are getting out there and exploring the world again.
It seems so. Travel and tourism output is up this year, which suggests that consumer confidence is returning.
That's a good sign for the global economy overall.
It is. People feel more optimistic, more willing to spend money on experiences.
And that's what life's all about, right? Experiences.
Absolutely. Okay, are you ready for a mind-bending journey into the world of science and technology?
Always. Hit me with it.
All right, so this week, physicists announced a groundbreaking discovery. They found evidence suggesting there might be not one, but two arrows of time.
2 arrows of time. Hold on, my brain's about to melt.
I know, it's a wild concept, right? It challenges everything we thought we knew about how time works, especially at the subatomic level.
So, like, 2 timelines happening simultaneously. Parallel universes and all that.
It's kind of like that. Imagine realizing the Earth is round when you've always believed it was flat.
A pretty fundamental shift in understanding.
That's exactly what this is. It could revolutionize physics and our understanding of the universe.
Makes you wonder what other truths we might be taking for granted.
I know, it's mind-blowing. But while we're contemplating the mysteries of time, let's bring things back down to Earth for a moment.
Back to reality, you mean?
Exactly. There's some new research about the Greenland ice sheet that's causing concern.
What's the latest on that?
Well, scientists are saying that if it hits a certain tipping point, it could melt completely.
Completely. Wow, that's a scary thought.
It is. And if that were to happen, it would have a catastrophic impact on global sea levels.
We're talking coastal cities underwater, massive displacement of people.
It's a stark reminder of the urgency of addressing climate change.
We can't afford to wait any longer.
Agreed. But hey, amidst these kind of dire warnings, there have also been some incredible breakthroughs in science and technology.
Let's hear some good news for a change.
All right, well, researchers made an amazing discovery this week. They found that birds actually evolved complex brains independently from mammals.
So they figured out how to be smart all on their own.
Exactly. It challenges our traditional understanding of brain evolution and highlights the incredible diversity of life on our planet.
It's amazing how nature finds different paths to complexity.
It is. And speaking of amazing things, scientists have developed a fully recyclable solar cell.
Wow, that's a game changer for renewable energy.
It is. It could really help us move away from fossil fuels.
And what else? Any other technological marvels to report?
Oh, there's more. They've also created self-healing electronic skin.
Self-healing, like it can repair itself if it gets marriaged.
Exactly. Imagine the possibilities for things like robotics and prosthetics.
That's straight out of science fiction.
It really is. And to top it off, researchers have figured out how to use AI to accelerate nanoparticle research.
AI is popping up everywhere these days.
It's becoming an essential tool in so many fields. It's helping us make progress in medicine, materials, science, you name it.
So there's a lot to be excited about in the world of science and technology.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's take a little detour into the realm of, shall we say, quirky cultural trends.
Sounds fun. Lead the way.
All right, so have you heard of bed rotting?
Bed rotting. What in the world is that?
Well, it's a trend that's been going viral on TikTok. It's all about embracing rest and relaxation, like spending extended periods of time in bed as a form of self-care.
So basically just chilling out in bed. Sounds all right to me.
Right. It might seem a bit lazy to some, but it also reflects a growing awareness of the importance of mental health and well-being.
I guess in our always-on go-go-go world, it's easy to forget to just take a break and recharge.
Exactly. And speaking of trends, have you noticed how AI is starting to influence human creativity?
Oh yeah, it's becoming more and more prevalent. It's almost like a collaboration between humans and machines.
Right. It's blurring the lines between what's human-made and what's machine-made.
Like in fashion, some designers are using AI to generate patterns and designs for their collections.
It's fascinating to see how those two worlds are coming together.
Definitely. And speaking of fashion, have you noticed all the sci-fi and fantasy themes popping up?
Oh yeah, it's everywhere. Space-age designs, mythical creatures. It's like fashion is becoming a portal to other worlds.
It's a way for people to escape from reality to express their individuality.
And lastly, we can't forget about that satirical petition that went viral calling for Denmark to buy California.
Oh, that was hilarious. Obviously a joke, but it does say something about the state of California politics.
Right, it's a way for people to vent their frustrations, to use humor to make a point.
Sometimes laughter is the best medicine, especially when things are tough. It really is like stepping into another dimension sometimes.
It is. And, you know, that petition, it might have been a joke, but
Yeah, it definitely tapped into something.
for sure, it reflects some of the, well, the anxieties people have about, where California's headed.
And politics in general, I think sometimes humor is the only way to deal with it.
I think you're right. It's a way to process things, to make a statement without, getting too serious.
Exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, haven't we?
We have, from those conflicts brewing around the world to
The political dramas unfolding.
the mind-boggling science and even the quirkier side of culture.
It's been a whirlwind.
It has, and it really underscores just how interconnected everything is, right?
Absolutely. What happens in one part of the world affects us all in some way.
And the challenges we're facing, they're not simple, they're not isolated.
They're complex, they're interwoven.
But, amidst all of that, all the things that can feel overwhelming,
There's also a lot of potential for positive change.
I agree. We've seen some amazing examples of resilience, of ingenuity.
From those scientific breakthroughs to the ways people are expressing themselves creatively,
It's a reminder that even when things are tough, there's always reason for hope.
always. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to turn it over to you.
What stood out to you the most from all these stories?
What sparked your curiosity? What will you be exploring further?
We encourage you to dig deeper, to read more, to research, to engage in those conversations that challenge your perspective.
Don't be afraid to question your assumptions.
Because we're all on this journey of learning and discovery together, right?
We are. And as we navigate this complex world, it's important to remember that even our individual actions,
No matter how small they may seem,
they can make a difference. They can create a ripple effect.
every choice we make, every conversation we have, every act of kindness, it all contributes to building a more just and compassionate world.
A better world for everyone. So as you go about your day, we leave you with this thought.
What's one step you can take today to make a positive impact?
It could be volunteering in your community, supporting a cause you believe in.
Or simply reaching out to someone who needs a helping hand?
Remember, we're all in this together, and even the smallest actions can make a big difference when we all pull in the same direction.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
We'll see you next time for another exploration of the world around us.